welcome aboard, making a debut. Well, you've been on the show several times, but now as an exclusive insider for us now every week, thanks to the great folks at RedRecover.com. Matt, how you doing, my friend? How you feeling, baby?
I'm doing good. It's June. It means we're only 1 month away. Really, I get 6-7 weeks away, but 1 month away in the calendar anyway from getting to training camp, getting to football. Have some more OTAs and minicamp before that. So good. Feeling good. How are you?
Over and under for Deshaun Watson on accusers in 6 more weeks, 30, 33. Where are we going? Because we're up to 23, 24 now. And I got to tell you, Matt, when I heard about it yesterday, the 23rd, and now this morning, the 24th, the first thing I said was, thank the Lord the Dolphins aren't part of this freaking circus, because that's what it is. And Cleveland, I get it, man. When you're desperate, you do desperate things. And I know, because our Dolphins have done some desperate things over the years to try to get back over the hump again. But this story, dude, is odd in every level.
It's bad. It's really bad. Look, last week, HBO Real Sports with Brian Gumbel, right? They interview a lot of the accusers of Deshaun Watson with pending civil suits against him. And now there are more coming out. And you do wonder, is there going to be just 1 more, 2 more? Is there going to be 10 more? You don't know. And I'll tell you who else doesn't know, the Cleveland Browns, who right now are sitting there. And with every new accuser, you have to be wondering, well, what does this mean? What does this bring? They paid him $230 million guaranteed. There is no way out for the Browns. If this goes horribly south for them, which it has the potential of doing, the NFL is not going to bail them out of this. I mean, that's going to be the Browns' problem. So they have taken an enormous risk. Some might say an unnecessary risk. And now they've just got to hope that this doesn't completely backfire on them.
By the way, last couple of years, the NFL has learned that you can't pay running backs after all the big deals that have happened with several guys, and they all fell apart. Well, now the whole Gruden thing happened with the Raiders, and the league freaked out that they gave this guy $10 million a year for 10 years. And then here's Carolina getting suckered in, having to give Matt Rule all this money. And now the league's gotten burned for that too. Well, now you have given guaranteed contracts to Kirk Cousins, and now you're giving it to a guy in the middle of a lawsuit. I wonder if NFL owners are hoping that it goes awry, so that way they have the ammunition that they need in negotiations in the future when others are asking for guaranteed deals. Say, no, man, look at what happened with Deshaun Watson. This doesn't pay off. Hey, look what's happened with all these running backs that got all this big money. That hasn't paid off. Look at all these coaches that they're giving big money to, Urban Meyer, Matt Rule, and now Gruden, who started it. It has not paid off. I just wonder if there's a little bit of that sentiment going on.
Well, I'll say this. That Deshaun Watson contract pissed off a lot of people in the NFL, in a lot of buildings, because he's a great player on the field, but he didn't play at all last year. Obviously going through all these, part of it because he didn't want to be in Houston, part of it because of all the legality issues on the off-field side of things for him. But then you look at this from a broader perspective. So if you are Kyler Murray, who is having his own issues from a contract negotiation standpoint with the Cardinals, if you're Kyler Murray, you're looking at this going, I don't have any off-field issues, and I'm a pretty good player in my own right. Maybe not a Deshaun Watson level player, but a top half of the league quarterback, maybe even top 10, depending on where you view him. He's looking at this going, if that guy under those circumstances got $230 million guaranteed, I want $250 million guaranteed, minimum. And the Cardinals are probably looking at that going, well, you're not worth that amount of money. Causes a problem. I also look at
and by the way, let's also the Bidwells have also been known to spend so much money too.
Right. The most lavish of ownership groups, of course. It's a point well taken, but it's actually perfect segue for this. So the Bengals and the Chargers, another 2 teams that have been known to just spend gobs and gobs and gobs of money, they both have quarterbacks who are extension eligible after this season. Burrow just went to a Super Bowl. Herbert has put up numbers that are fantastic for any player, let alone the first couple years of his career. Those guys are going to rightfully say, we're better than Deshaun Watson, and we have no issues off the field, and we want to get paid big time. I mean, if I'm one of their agents, I'm saying 275. That's what I want. And you're going to pay it to me because somebody else will if you won't. And
Right.
if you're the Browns, you screwed these teams, which I'm sure in that regard they don't mind. But the Bengals, until a couple of years ago, never signed free agents.
I mean, this is what they did this offseason. The Bengals had never done before. Dude, they spent a lot of money this offseason. Listen, I've ripped Mike Brown for many, many years.
Changed a little
Mike
bit
Brown
now.
this offseason. He made they finally learned their lesson. I mean, you watch the Colts, they scared away a generational quarterback because they wouldn't build the damn line in front of him. So learn your damn lesson, dude. If you have a quarterback, don't allow him to get his knee blown out in the first year already. Come on, take care of the kid.
Well, and the Bengals for the longest time, they didn't have an indoor practice facility. I mean, that's something now that they're in the process of rectifying. Katie Blackburn really runs that team as much now as Mike Brown does, and I think a lot of things have changed with her being more involved. But look, I expect them to pay Burrow, but it's going to cost them an absolute fortune. What people don't realize is when you pay a contract in the NFL, this dates back to the 80s, the guaranteed money, the portion that's guaranteed, that has to go into escrow at the moment you sign a contract. So look, I get these guys are billionaires. If you're talking 250, 275 guaranteed, that's a lot of money to have liquid on hand that you are now tying up in escrow. Like that's what these guys are going to have to do for a Herbert, for a Burrow. Yeah. And maybe for the Chargers who have this brand new stadium, granted they're sharing it, maybe it's a little less of an issue. The Bengals have one of the worst stadiums in the league. And so like that stuff matters. That makes life a lot harder on these teams.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just crazy to see what's gone on with Watson. And it's just a disturbing story on every level there. When we look at what's going on in Washington, dude, what's going to happen with that owner? And then now I see where they're lowering the seats down to 55,000. And I'm old enough that I remember RFK, Jack Kent Cooke Stadium was around 55, but back then it was an older stadium that was made that way. Then you made the bigger stadium because obviously you had great attendance, but since Snyder's taken over, it's progressively gotten worse. Less and less fans go to what used to be a historic team in this league. Just like the Dolphins, they were considered royalty in the NFL, and they have fallen from grace, just like our beloved Dolphins have. Dude, what goes on there? I mean, the NFL is looking at that going, the whole franchise has gone backwards, and there's no way to build momentum with that guy running that place.
Well, when you talk about the question of what's going on with Washington, that question could have been asked every day for the last 20 years, and you might get a different answer. Every day it feels like something else is going on there. I've said and written this a lot in the last couple of months. If they can prove that Daniel Snyder withheld 8 cents from another owner, that is the end of him owning an NFL team. They will put up with a lot of crap in the NFL, but if you cost somebody a nickel, that's it. That's the end. And so I think if they can prove that out, Washington fans will get their wish of him being out the door because they will not put up with him skimming off the top. Now, as far as that stadium goes, you're right. RFK used to be one of the hardest places to play in the NFL. It was both between the fan base and the team. Does anybody have any fear of ever going in there now and playing them?
No.
Nobody. It's a mausoleum. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
You go to Washington.
They tarp off most of the second floor now, man. I mean, it's embarrassing.
That is a game now that if you're a halfway decent team, if you go to Washington, you should win. You expect to win the game and leave. And I think that is a clear correlation to when Daniel Snyder took over that franchise in 1999. They were a very proud franchise. They were a franchise that consistently went to the playoffs. They have done nothing since he's on that team. I mean, they've only made the playoffs a handful of times. I think they've won one playoff game in his tenure. Maybe it's 2. They have been useless. But I don't suspect that anything's going to change with the ownership group unless they can prove that he was skimming off the top. If they prove that, he'll be gone tonight because the NFL doesn't waste any time when it comes to the checkbook.
Yeah, the only thing I'm, and we're talking with Matt Verderame, by the way, fan-sided. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Matt Verderame. Matt, the only thing I look at is I wonder with all this email mess, do they know something that there's more stuff in those emails that Dan Snyder knows about, and that it's one of those Nino Brown situations in New Jack City. Well, if I'm going down, I'm taking everybody with me. You know what I mean? And I just wonder if there's some of that, because with the Gruden mess and the Snyder mess going on, I almost feel like those guys know one's already being used as a tool, and then the other one says, no, you're not gonna. I've got something on you guys too. So I just wonder what else is there behind the scenes that keeps that dude in place, because it just doesn't make any sense to keep that guy as an owner.
It's true. I mean, look, you always wonder that because he's been in the league a long time. I mean, he's been owner almost 25 years now. Like I said, he bought the team in 1999. So you're dating back a couple of decades. How much dirt does he have on other guys? How much dirt does he have on the league? That's always in question. I'm always kind of a believer. If the league really wanted to turn its guns on him, I don't care what he does. They can kind of bury certain things, but it is fair. And I always feel like, we've seen so many times these ugly allegations come out, and in some cases, not even allegations, just facts come out of Washington, and it feels like nothing changes with him. And yet, I think a big part of it is other owners look at that and go, well, I've got to back other owners, because if something happens with me, I don't want to lose my franchise. I want to make sure I'm kind of insulated and protected. Now, again, I will forever believe the NFL, first and foremost, is a business. If any of those owners feel like he took $8 out of their pocket, that is the end of him in the NFL. I don't care. They will bury him. They'll do whatever it takes. But yeah, I do think there is truth to the fact that a lot of times these owners look and go, is it worth it? Is it worth it for us to kick him out of the league? And a lot of, truthfully too, especially in the NFC East, some of those other owners are probably like, good, keep him.
Yeah, right. Easy win for us. Yeah. Although, regardless, they've actually built a pretty good defense. You know what I mean? It's actually pretty good. And by the way, you were talking about the Bengals. Well, Hayden Hurst, former first-round pick, NFL tight end for the Bengals. He uses RedRecover, by the way, as part of his daily recovery program to optimize performance on Sundays. And if you want to listen to his testimony, you can go to RedRecover.com. RedRecover.com has helped me grow the back patch of my hair back. By the way, you want to check it out, go to the website, RedRecover.com, or on Instagram at red.recover, and use our discount code Big O to receive 10% discount there on the side on your way out. Go to RedRecover.com. All right, Matt, so bring it kind of full circle. We see the Deshaun Watson mess. I'm glad that they didn't make the move. I've been a Tua guy. I believe in Tua. Only thing I've ever had concern with Tua has been his injury history. That's the only thing. I've always felt that if you give him what he needs, he can go out there and be successful. I think they did that this offseason, and I think people are going to see now. Hell, dude, he was one of the least sacked quarterbacks behind a line that can't block and can't run. So obviously the kid has some skill set. And if you watched him, I thought he did a pretty good job under terrible conditions and a head coach that didn't want him around. So where do you stand now after you've watched this entire offseason that Chris Greer and company have put together? Where do you see Tua? Where do you stand on the whole Tua discussion?
Well, I think they've given him a chance to succeed really for the first time in his career. Teron Armstead's a guy who you do worry about his injury history, but when he's on the field, he's a top 5 left tackle in football. Tyreek Hill is, I would argue, the best weapon in the league. I mean, it's certainly the most electric weapon in football. Nobody can turn a 5-yard slant into a 70-yard touchdown like Tyreek Hill can. So you add him with Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki. That's a lot of talent. That's a lot. I mean, that's a real group of weapons. And by the way, I think Raheem Mostert's going to be really good in the offense as well. Mike McDaniel's an offensive-minded head coach. I thought Brian Flores got a raw deal. I thought he did a really nice job. But that being said, I do think McDaniel, as far as Tua is concerned, it might help him a little bit being an offensive-minded guy. This is a huge year. Let's not beat around the bush. This is a huge year for him. They have draft capital moving forward where if he doesn't play well or he gets hurt, they could say, well, we can go out and draft another quarterback and trade Tua for whatever they can get. I mean, that's the reality we live in. Back in the 90s and even the early 2000s, if you were a first-round pick, you got 3-4 years, period.
Yeah.
You don't have that now. And look, your point is well taken. Their offensive line throughout his career has been hideous. They can't block. I remember watching it was week 2 last year. They played Buffalo, and he got hurt in the very beginning of the game.
Yeah.
He got hit every time he dropped back. Like, literally got hit every single time he dropped until he finally just got hurt.
Hey, this year, I saw something I've never seen before. A quarterback who's pressured as he's handing off.
Yeah, I mean, they can't block. So it's been a real issue for them. Now you bring in Armstead, you bring in Connor Williams, you bring in an offensive-minded head coach that should help that side of the football. For me, he doesn't have to go out and throw for 4,500 yards and 35 touchdowns. There are plenty of quarterbacks that don't do that. By the way, Joe Burrow last year, his numbers were greatly inflated by the fact that against Baltimore, he basically threw for 1,000 yards in 2 games. Most of the time, otherwise, it wasn't like he was out there throwing for 300 a game. I mean, there are very few guys, the Mahomeses of the world, the Bradys of the world. Most guys don't do that. I mean, if Tua goes out and throws for 4,100 yards and 26 touchdowns, you should be able to win with that.
That'll be a hell of a year for him.
That's fine. It can't be 3,320. That it can't be.
I think the savior for him this year is that they have a run-oriented offense.
They do.
And to me, that's how you win in this league. Run the shit out of the ball, pound the hell out of the guys, make those linebackers suck in, and then all of a sudden the middle of that field opens up. This is why I always say, would you get your roast beef out of the damn oven already? Come on.
I'm sorry. It's my damn cell phone.
It's all right. It's all good. So, it's like Ryan Tannehill. You watch what Derrick Henry does for him, and that's what the running game does for you. So, when Kurt Warner was great, but it's also great that you had Marshall Faulk back there. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
So a lot of, Joe Montana is great, but, he had a running game back there. You know what I'm saying? So all these kind of guys that have had success offensively, when Russell was kicking ass, it's because he had a running game. As his career went on in Seattle, they stopped running the ball and things became that much harder for Russell, just like any other quarterback out there. Joe Mixon, the aforementioned Joe Burrow. Joe Mixon takes a ton of pressure off of Joe Burrow because he's a damn good running back. That to me is the most important thing, because Mike McDaniel comes from that tree for the last 15 years that it's imperative for them to run the ball. And to me, that's going to be Tua's best friend. The fact that they're going to be actually dedicated to the run. And if they can run the ball, a guy like him can definitely take advantage of that.
I think there's definitely a lot of truth in that. I would also say, too, when you look at the way teams have won recently in the NFL, even though the passing numbers are through the roof compared to where they've ever been in the history of the league, there is truth, though, if you look. So the Buccaneers won a couple of years ago, and Brady gets a 7th ring, and everybody talks about that. Brady was terrible in the playoffs. They won the Super Bowl that year because their defense was otherworldly in the playoffs. That's why they won. They held Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs without a touchdown. That had never happened before until that game. When the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, yes, the Chiefs had a great offense. There's no question about that. Go look at the way they won the Super Bowl. Their defense, the second half of the season, was one of the best in the NFL. I believe over the last 9 weeks, including the playoffs, they gave up something like 13 points a game. That's why they won. They won because they were dominant defensively. Now, that doesn't mean that having a quarterback who can make the big play on 3rd and 11 doesn't matter. Of course it does. That erases a lot of mistakes. it gives you a lot of leeway. But you look around. I mean, the Rams won the Super Bowl. Now, if you go look at the scores in those playoff games, they won because of their defense. And by the way, it's also true that the Bengals, as great, and I love Burrow, they got to the Super Bowl because of their defense. They scored less than 20 points against Tennessee. Against the Chiefs, they won that game because they held the Chiefs into the low 20s. Right. That's why they won. It wasn't like they scored 38 points against Kansas City. So I do still think, look, if Miami can get to a point where gets the ball to Tyreek, gets the ball to Waddle, lets him make plays, run the ball at Mostert, gets the ball to Gesicki, that's fine. Then your defense takes over. They've got a great secondary. Let them go make some plays. Let them force some turnovers. That's how you're going to win. And I think people look at these passing numbers and they go, if you don't throw for 5,000 yards, you have no shot to win. Well, in reality, if you look at these Super Bowl champions, most of these teams, yes, they have great quarterbacks and they win because those guys can make a big play in a big spot. But a lot of times, it's because of the team getting the job done.
Right, exactly. I agree with you. And that's why I always talk about balance, because I don't care if you're Marino, dude. You need a running game, you need a defense. He didn't have either, so he doesn't get over the top. And that's kind of part of this whole thing, man. And you look around the league, the quarterback that has more help is the guy that's going to get there. When I just told you about Russell Wilson, when Russell had a better defense and a better running game, that's when they had a chance at building that dynasty. Once it wasn't no longer the Legion of Doom, and once Marshawn got old and left, the rest of that team just went by the wayside, and it got progressively worse, and it didn't get back to where it was. And it wasn't Russell's fault. He's doing the best he can, but he can't do it alone, dude. That's also the misconception, Matt, that we have this thing that it's almost like people make it sound like you get the quarterback and he grabs a shitty team and he goes to the Super Bowl and wins it, when that's never happened before. You know what I mean? It's actually really good teams will take a Nick Foles to the title, will take a Brad Johnson and a Trent Dilfer to a title, but no, Joe Montana doesn't carry a shitty San Francisco team. Neither did Terry Bradshaw, and neither did Tom Brady. Well, I don't care who you are. You're getting there because it's a good team, not a great quarterback.
So that's true. And by the way, the ding sound is finally, I figured that out. New computer, the ding sound's gone. So the roast beef's out of the oven. I apologize to the listeners out there. It drove me nuts. No, listen, Brady's the greatest winner of all time in the NFL. Won 7 Super Bowls. The first 3 Super Bowls that they won, he was a caretaker offensively. I mean, not different era, fine. But then you look at when they were throwing all over the yard, 50 touchdown passes, Randy Moss, 22 receptions for a touchdown. They didn't win the Super Bowl that year. They went undefeated. Right. Who did they lose to? They lost to a team that played great defense, that got a great pass rush. A lot of times, the team that just throws – look, I grew up a Chiefs fan, full disclosure. And I remember, my dad is an enormous Chiefs fan. And watching them in that AFC title game against New England, the first one they made, the year Mahomes won the MVP, they couldn't stop anybody. And they lost in the AFC title game because they gave up 37 points. They won the Super Bowl the next year because they could play defense. That's why they won. And I think, it still comes down in the NFL, no matter what anybody says. You've got to play a team game. You have to, and the quarterback being great, being able to complete a 15-yarder on 3rd and 12, sure. That's a huge advantage. And I don't think it's a coincidence that most guys that win Super Bowls are Hall of Fame quarterbacks. But if you look, and you brought up Russell Wilson, it's a perfect point. That team was phenomenal around him the year they won and the following year when they went to the Super Bowl.
When they should have won.
Absolutely.
Dumbest call in the history of the damn game.
No, the dumbest play call I've ever seen in my life. That being said, once they started to slip off of that a little bit, they still have great receivers. Russell Wilson's still a great quarterback. Fell apart. It's very, very hard. I think, look, the Dolphins have finally given Tua an opportunity with having 2 elite skill guys on the outside, an underrated tight end, and an offensive line that, as long as Armstead's healthy, should at least be much better. Yeah. And if they have that,
Well, and it also going to be,
Good
it's going to
work.
be schemed. It's also going to be, see, one of the things that I also talked about the last year here was play design and scheme was not good here. They had 3 offensive coordinators deciding every 40 seconds what to tell Tua. You had 3 stooges, and by the way, none of them were successful offensive coordinators before. None of them were successful quarterbacks coaches at the NFL level. Like Tua stepped into a coaching staff that he looked around and he go, shit, can I go back to Alabama? Because they got like real coaches over there. Like, yeah, I'm sure he saw that from the get-go. And I think that's what's going to Mike McDaniel's going to help him with play design and play calling, because that is so important in the NFL, that you have a guy that knows how to scheme against the what you're facing and
Yes.
knows when to call the plays at the right time. That you have to have a great play caller, and I think that's what McDaniel will bring to the table, something they had not had, man. They didn't have anybody that was used to calling plays successfully at this level. They didn't have a quarterbacks. Dude, Charlie Fry worked with him on 7-on-7s when he was, before college. I mean, give me a break. That's your QB coach? Come on, dude. I mean, that's not going to fly.
What's going to be really interesting with Miami, and frankly, a lot of teams in the AFC, is that conference is so damn good that you're going to have teams that are really good teams. Teams that in the NFC might be a 4 seed, 5 seed, that are just not going to make the playoffs in the AFC. And I think, look, if you're Miami, there's still a gap in my eyes between them and Buffalo, who I think Buffalo might be the best team in football. Okay, Kansas City, maybe Cincinnati. My question with Miami is, can you get to the point where you get past New England, which I think they should this year, quite honestly.
I agree.
They're more talented than New England is. Now, Belichick is Belichick, and they will win some games they shouldn't because he's just such a great coach. But the funny thing is, Miami's actually had their number. Like, the Dolphins have beaten the Pats for years on end. So that, to me, I want to see them get past New England. I want to see them, especially if Watson gets suspended here, you got to be better than Cleveland. You got to be better than Pittsburgh. They should clearly be better than Pittsburgh.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
I know this sounds weird because they were the 1 seed. I think Miami should be better than Tennessee if Tua plays well. Tennessee losing AJ Brown.
Yeah. I'm not a Tannehill guy, so yeah. Yeah, I have no problem with that.
And then to me, look, the AFC West is a weird deal. I mean, I think Kansas City is the best of the group, but then you get into like the Chargers are really talented and should be really good, but they never win anything.
Right.
The Broncos to me are the hardest team to figure out in football. They could be 12 wins good, and I could see that. I could see them being a real problem. I could also see them being a team that goes 8-9, and Russell Wilson really never gets it going there, and their offensive line is not great.
Are you convinced Denver has the same defense they've had the last couple of years, or that defense has lost a little bit? That's what I'm
not. It's a great point. I actually was just saying this on my podcast yesterday. I think them losing Fangio, look, he was a terrible head coach. He's a great defensive coordinator.
Right. Yeah.
And that guy being gone, you look at the rest of like that defense. Okay, look, Simmons is a great safety. Surtain played really well as a rookie. And Chubb, when healthy, is an excellent player. There's a lot of guys on the rest of that defense. I mean, they paid Randy Gregory $70 million. He has 16.5 career sacks.
I know.
So
Campbell.
I agree. Denver's just weird. I don't know what to make of them. So the Dolphins are going to have a shot. I think for Miami, the goal's got to be get to 10 wins. You get to 10 wins, you probably find your way in, unless you're just really unlucky with the breakers.
Yeah, should be fun. All right, what are you working on fan-sided so folks can check you out, my friend?
Well, as always, every Monday morning, Stacking the Box, the column comes out, covers the whole league, covers every team. Stacking the Box podcast comes out on Tuesday, also a national deal. And then beyond that, right now, just working on some bigger features. I'll update everybody as we get a little closer, but this is the time of year to do it. Have a little bit of time, not bogged down by the day-to-day of the NFL. So busy, but a little less busy than I will be in September and October and so forth.
There you go. And follow him on Twitter like I and many others do at Matt Verderame, NFL reporter. And, of course, you'll catch him here in the Huddle every week on Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Matt, as always, thank you, my brother. Appreciate you, and welcome to the family, my friend.
Hey, glad to be part of it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, my brother. There you go. Matt Verderame, the Huddle, brought to you by RedRecover.com. Don't forget, RedRecover uses some The same red and infrared technology that many veterinarians use on dogs suffering from hip and back ailments, but available for a fraction of the cost, and it's used in the convenience of your home. My wife is using it now. She's got bad knees, and when there's rain and humidity or whatever, sometimes the house may get too cold. She gets a little bit of knee, and she puts on the RedRecover, and it makes her feel so much better. I have not used it for pain yet because I haven't gone through any pain issues. I've been using it to regrow my hair. And by the way, I told you that I would show it to you. Here's the hat that's been helping me grow my hair. Okay. Here's the RedRecover. Okay. Now, these hats are in back order, supply chain. So you put it like, you turn it on, and all you do is put it on for 15 minutes. And it helps you regrow your hair. So this is what I've been doing, but it's taken a while, and they're about to get the supply in. They've got everything for everything else. I'm actually going to use something now for my bags, so we'll see how it does for the bags. But for backs, for knee pain, any kind of body soreness, RedRecover has anything that you need. What you need to do is go to RedRecover.com, check it out for yourself, check out the blogs, check out the videos, and remember, use my code BIG-O. You will save 10% on there. So check it out for those of you that are struggling with some pain issues, or if you're struggling because you want to regrow your hair, well, then RedRecover.com is what you want to use. So there you go. See how easy it is? Super easy and convenient. You can walk around. You don't have to do anything. And it's only 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Not a big deal. There you go. Matt Verderame and the Huddle.
This is the Big O Show.